إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله. We praise Allah, we thank Him, we praise Him, we seek His assistance and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Him. وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شُرُورِ أَنفُسِنَا, from the evils of our own selves, وَمِنْ سَيِّئَاتِ أَعْمَالِنَا, and from the consequences of our bad deeds. مَنْ يَهْدِهِ اللَّهُ فَلَا مُضِلَّ لَهُ, whoever Allah guides, there is no one who can lead him astray. وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَا هَادِيَ لَهُ, and whoever Allah allows to stray, no one can guide him. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. I openly testify that there is no deity worthy of any act of worship other than Allah alone without any partners. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. And I testify that Muhammad was his servant and final messenger. أما بعد, as for what follows, then alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has blessed us once again from His many blessings that we benefit from day and night. We have been blessed now to come together in these last remaining days of Ramadan, the year 1434. And this night is the 20th night, the night preceding the 20th day of Ramadan. And we thank Him for all of the blessings that He has bestowed upon us in this month and in other times as well. We ask Him to make us amongst the truly grateful. We ask Him to make us amongst those who take advantage of His blessings and reap the rewards that lie in wait for those who take advantage of them. We have in front of us, we have fitna, we have trials and tribulations in our religion. We have a life that is full of trials and tribulations. We have calamities in our worldly lives, and we have calamities that we have to face in religious matters. We have people that go astray. We ourselves may go astray. We have people who are calling to the truth in the name of the truth, using proofs from the book of Allah, the truth, using proofs from the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet they are not upon the truth in any way. While they use proofs from the book and the Sunnah, stretching their meanings and distorting them, quoting them as if to have knowledge and authority for what they call to, they are nothing but callers to the hellfire. And whoever responds to them and their invitations to straying and misguidance, they follow them into the hellfire. We are living in times of fitna and calamities in the religion, where those people who are safe in such calamities, they are the people who gain that safety from the bounties of Allah, by seeking the safety from Allah Ta'ala alone, seeking security and steadfastness and stability upon the truth from Allah Ta'ala alone. As a reminder to myself and all of you, they keep in mind the fact that so many of Allah's servants have strayed after being guided. So many of the people have become doubters after having certainty. So many of the people have embraced bid'ah, innovations after having embraced the Sunnah. So many people have fallen into acts of shirk after having been guided to Tawheed. So many people fall into things that violate their iman, mukaffirat, things that take them outside of Islam, after Allah blessed them to have iman in their hearts, on their tongues, and on their limbs. We thank Allah Ta'ala that He has spared us from such trials. And we ask Him for stability and safety from the trials that have afflicted those around us. With so much of that going on around us, we can't help but to thank Allah for stability in our religion, for safety and security in times of calamity and misguidance, widespread misguidance, being spread in the name of the truth by people who appear to be calling to the truth. Walhamdulillah. We need to reflect on the meaning of Surah Al-Fatiha that we read all of the time, and when we say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, as it is commonly translated. Guide us here means Ihdina, guide us, not necessarily or not restricted to guide us, just give us guidance, because we have already received Allah's guidance. We are reciting Al-Fatiha. We have already been the beneficiaries of Allah's guidance for some time, to have learned the Fatiha, to be reciting the Fatiha, to have been guided to it and its great meanings. So what are we asking for with this Ihdina? As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim. What are we asking for? We're asking for stability on that truth that we have already been guided to. We're not asking for guidance to something new here. We're asking for stability upon the statement of La ilaha illallah and its proper meaning and application. We're asking for stability and steadfastness as the people stray, stumble, contradict themselves, and lead themselves and others into destruction. We ask Allah Ta'ala for hidayah, hidayah to thabat, the guidance of being firm and stable, that the only ones who enjoy this guidance, they are the ones who beg Allah and beseech Allah with this dua in Surah Al-Fatiha, and asking Allah Ta'ala for guidance all of the time, and they are the ones whom Allah Ta'ala has favored and granted them that guidance. Ya ibadi kullukum dal illa man hadaytuhu fastahduni ahdikum. O my servants, as Allah said in the Hadith Qudsi narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala himself has said with words that are not from the Quran, something called a Hadith Qudsi, narrated by the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Allah said, O my servants, all of you are astray, except the ones that I guide. Except the one I guide. So seek guidance from me, and I will guide you. All of you are astray. All of us are astray, with an exception of the few that Allah Ta'ala has guided. Have you been blessed to be amongst this number? If you are, then thank Allah Ta'ala. وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. And if you thank me, as Allah Ta'ala has said in His book, then I will give you an increase. If you have been blessed with stability while others are going astray, then thank Allah with statements of thanks and actions of thanks. Statements on the tongue and in the heart, and actions in the heart and on the limbs. All of it of gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. And by performing those acts of thanks and gratitude to Allah, through that, Allah Ta'ala will accept that from you, and Allah Ta'ala will in turn increase you in that which you are thanking Him for. Do not neglect this aspect of our religion, brothers and sisters, as we witness the straying of so many people, the misguidance coming and overtaking people like waves of water, washing people away into a sea of fitna and confusion. Very few remain stable. Only those whom Allah Ta'ala has favored, may Allah make us from them. And our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Bada al-Islamu ghariban, wa sayaudu kama bada'a ghariban." Islam began as something strange, something peculiar, and it's going to go back to the way that it began, as being strange. فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاءِ. So glad tidings to the strangers. This hadith was collected by Al-Imam Muslim in his Sahih, from the report of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, narrating it from the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam. May Allah raise his rank and grant him peace. Strangers walking on earth, practicing the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon the millah of Ibrahim, upon the upright monotheistic religion of Abraham, the worship of Allah alone, amongst a group of people ascribing to the same religion. People ascribing to the same religion. People saying, we are the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We are the adherents to his messenger. Yet, actions that show gross negligence in applying that religion, in the very foundation of the core of the message. Muslims today or those who claim Islam as their religion, you can find them making grossly negligent and contradictory statements to their very testimony of faith, saying that I call upon the dead, for example. Why? Because they are righteous, they are pious, and the dead can hear. And there's an issue about can the dead hear or not, and I happen to believe, along with the scholars who say, the dead can hear. So now the dead can hear. So as a result, I will call upon them. I won't ask the dead person to give me anything directly. I don't think he can help me. I don't think he can hurt me. I don't think he has any benefit to offer, except that he's close to Allah by his own righteous deeds that he performed. So I will ask him to intercede for me. I will ask him to ask Allah on my behalf. These are the people that are widespread amongst us today. And you find so many Muslims, even students of knowledge, and sadly even people who ascribe to knowledge of Islam, and people who are respected as people of knowledge, either justifying this or minimalizing the seriousness of the issue, or claiming that such a person has done something wrong, but he is not outside of Islam. Someone who calls upon a dead person and names the dead person, calling upon other than Allah with an action that is an action, the exact same thing that the people of Mecca were doing when the Prophet ﷺ was dispatched to them as a messenger, as a bashir and a nadir, as a bringer of glad tidings and as a warner. And when he stood up to them and he called them out by their names, and he called the heads of Quraysh to come out of their homes, and he gathered them and he stood upon the hill of As-Safa, and he said to them, I am a warner before the coming of a painful punishment. And they gathered because they knew he was trustworthy, and they knew he was honest, and they knew that if he gathered them, he would only gather them for something that was desperate news, that was something that everyone needed to hear. And as soon as they heard his message was La ilaha illallah. All acts of worship, supplication, dua, and every other act of worship must be for Allah Ta'ala alone. Must be for Allah Ta'ala alone. They understood his message. They understood it. And they didn't want it, the majority of them. They fought against him. They opposed him. They refused to say the statement of La ilaha illallah. They were a people who were doing lots of good things, as we will discover in the study of our book. They were a people who worshipped Allah much, who were kind and generous, who took care of their family and their elderly. They were people who helped the poor people, people who gave food and drink to those in need, people in the service of others, with so many good characteristics. People who worshipped Allah. People who worshipped Allah, in parentheses, and others. But people who did worship Allah, people who only assigned, or people who only understood, or understood that the only one who creates, brings life, brings death, causes the rain, the sustenance to come, the one who's in control of the whole universe, that is Allah alone. Despite the many partners they had in worship, that was their belief about ar-rububiyyah, about the lordship of Allah Ta'ala, and that he was alone in creating and providing and maintaining the universe. Yet they offered acts of worship to others, to angels, to righteous people, to deceased family members, and so on. And they believed that they were not requesting anything from those people. Yet they were requesting only from Allah Ta'ala. And they knew that what they were doing was an act of worship. Because when they heard the message of La ilaha illallah, all acts of worship now must be dedicated to Allah, they understood that they're calling upon these intermediaries, whom they said about them, هَؤُلَاءِ شُفَعَاؤُنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. These are just our intermediaries with Allah, meaning what we want is from Allah. We don't want anything from these intermediaries. They said, مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. We only worship them so that we could draw closer to Allah. That's the goal. They wanted nothing from those intermediaries themselves. They only wanted things from Allah. The same statement that people today say. The same statement that you find people dressed up in the garments of Salafiyya even. Dressed up in the garments of Ahlul Sunnah. Dressed up in the garments of Ahlul Athar. Dressed up like Ahlul Hadith. And yet they will justify this very act of shirk. And they will say that it doesn't take a person outside of Islam. And the scholars of Islam say, as we will see, brothers and sisters, that this attempt to justify or to minimalize the seriousness of the issue and not declare such a person outside of Islam is an attack on the very core of Islam itself, the very basic foundation of our belief system, that Allah is the only one who deserves any act of worship. This attempt has to be recognized by the people of truth as an attempted spread of falsehood. And it's not permissible for any person who calls himself a Muslim, for any person who has any knowledge of La ilaha illallah and any allegiance based on it, meaning a Muslim, it's not permissible for him to be mutawaqqif. He doesn't have a stance on someone who's spreading ideas like this, that it's a person who calls upon the dead, requesting their intercession, that he's not outside of Islam. Every Muslim has a stance on such a statement, that such a statement is absolutely ineffective, invalid, against our religion. It is an attempt to dismantle the very foundation of our aqeedah. And there is no respect we would give any individual that would allow us to accept that from him, no matter who he was. So Muslims, Tuba lakum, glad tidings to you, as the people have become corrupt and you remain holding to your deen like the one who holds onto a hot coal. You remain holding to your deen when the people blame you for disrespecting the scholars, disrespecting the elders, disrespecting the culture of the people and their practices. Tuba lakum, good tidings to you. Glad tidings to you, because you're from those people who the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about when he said, "Bada al-Islamu ghariban, wa sayaudu kama bada'a ghariba." Islam began as something strange, and it will return to the way it began, strange. Fatuba lil-ghuraba. So glad tidings to the strangers. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us from them. They said to the Messenger, "Aja'al al-aliha ilahan wahida." The strange call that he had, the strangeness in the very first days of Islam. The culture's established, the people are there, the people have a way of life, and this man stands up to oppose us. Singly, by himself. Then one person follows him, and then another. Just a small group of people who don't mean anything, as they would think. But they're opposing us. They said, "Aja'al al-aliha ilahan wahida?" Is he going to make the objects of our worship into one single object of worship? Is he going to cancel all of the partners that we used to associate and make the object of our worship one? Inna hada, what did they say? Inna hada, this is verily la shay'un ujab. This is a very strange thing. The strangeness of Islam from the very beginning was that you're going to cancel every last act of worship that you give to everyone. Al itlaq, every act of ibadah given to everyone, it's all cancelled, it's all nullified. You declare yourself free of all of those acts. And then, illallah. You say, La ilaha. There's no ma'bud. There's no one who deserves to be worshipped. And now I'll make one exception only. Out of all of that, everything worshipped in the universe, I negate all of it. I disown all of it. I declare myself free of all of it. The people who do it and the actions that they do, I'm free of all of it. That's the meaning of La ilaha. Then I say, illallah. And I say, except for one, Allah. Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth. The only one deserving of my worship. Now I exempt from all of those deities worshipped. I exempt one. Only Allah has the right to be worshipped. Only Allah has the right to be feared. The fear of worship. Or the hope. Only Allah is the one that we have hope in. The hope that is an act of worship. Allah is the one that we ultimately love. With the love of worship. Allah Ta'ala is the only one that we slaughter an animal in His name. Allah Ta'ala is the only one that we call upon with our supplications. Allah is the only one that we fast for. Allah Ta'ala is the only one that our salat is for. We have cancelled, negated, declared ourselves free of all things worshipped besides Allah. And that's our strangeness. That was the strangeness in the beginning of Islam, and look how it has returned to being something strange. Even amongst people now, the big difference is, and that which makes the second strangeness even stranger, is that the people that you are strange amongst, they are people claiming to be Muslims. They are people saying, we don't make shirk, yet they don't understand what the meaning of shirk is. There are people saying, I would never worship other than Allah, yet they don't understand what the meaning of the worship of Allah is. They're saying, I would never worship someone besides Allah, yet they don't know the meaning of ibadah, of worship. So how could they negate it from themselves? We'll see how this strangeness has returned. And how, within this study of this great book, Kashf ash-Shubuhaat, the exposition of the doubts, or the refutation of the doubts, meaning the doubts of the grave worshippers and the tomb fanatics. We'll see how their arguments, while they may seem knowledgeable, they may seem that they have an ayah, they may seem that they have a proof for what they say, we'll see how their arguments of people who even have knowledge of Islam, knowledge of the texts of the book and the Sunnah, but no understanding, knowledge can be refuted and taken down by a single commoner amongst Ahl Sunnah. A person with no knowledge, not a student of knowledge, just one person who's come along and studied a book like Kashf ash-Shubuhaat, the book that we're going to study. Insha'Allah ta'ala, if Allah blesses him to understand a few pages of a very important book, he will be able to stand up and make a statement. I am not a knowledgeable person, but I know that Allah has said this. And I know that your deen is the deen of Quraysh, the deen of the mushrikeen, whether you call yourself a Muslim or not. So I say to you, ayyuhal mushrik, I say to you, with all confidence, you polytheist, بَدَى بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءُ أَبَدًا. There has now arisen between me and you animosity and hatred forever. حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. Until you believe in Allah alone. Call yourself a Muslim, all you want. Call yourself a muwahhid, a person of Tawheed, all you want. You call upon other than Allah, whether it's to get something from that one directly, that deceased person directly, or whether you want him to intercede, your calling on him is shirk. It is the shirk of the people of Mecca. I'm free of you. I'm free of your religion of shirk. I have nothing to do with you. There's animosity and hatred, religious animosity, religious hatred, for the sake of Allah, between you and I, between you and me, and that exists forever, until, with the exception, that you decide to actualize the very reason for your existence, and dedicate all of your acts of worship to Allah Ta'ala alone, even if you already call yourself a Muslim and a person of Tawheed. You can say it 100 times. The statement that you make that you are a person of Tawheed and you would never make shirk means nothing in the face of your act of shirk that you would call upon other than Allah Ta'ala. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us people who take this issue seriously, and to not make us from the people who are attached to personalities, to callers, to students of knowledge, to teachers who would lead them astray because of the reputation of the big sheikh, or the reputation of the student of knowledge, or the reputation of the imam of the masjid, or he's a memorizer of Quran, or whatever is said about him. He's so pious, he's so righteous. Tawheed and Shirk have nothing to do with the reputation of a person. Your stance in Islam for Tawheed has nothing to do with the reputation of your teacher. And when you put the reputation of your teacher, the student of knowledge you learn from, the imam of your masjid, the imam of your madhab, the imam of your village, you put that in front of Tawheed and Shirk, then you have taken your allegiance. And you're responsible for that allegiance. And if you call upon other than Allah as part of those teachings, then you have chosen a religion other than Islam. And Allah Ta'ala will never accept it from you. And you will be in the hellfire forever with this act of shirk. No excuse for you that the sheikh has a big reputation. No excuse for you. Because Islam did not allow us to be ignorant of the very foundation of our religion. Allah Ta'ala is tolerant and gracious. Excuses people. Huwa afuwun yuhibbul afu. He is the excuser who loves to give excuses to his servants. He loves to accept the excuses of his servant. That's Allah Ta'ala. But in this issue of Tawheed, the very foundation, the very basis for what you have been created for, no ignorance is allowed. They'll say about you when you have this stance on your Tawheed, on your religion, they'll say about you that, oh, look how you turn on people. When someone becomes corrupt and he begins calling to to defend or legislate or justify or minimalize or sympathize with acts of shirk, they'll say about you, look how you turn on the people. Look how you said about someone yesterday that he was guided, and look how today you have a different stance on him. And they will attribute the idtirab, the stumbling, to you, not to the person who changed from Tawheed to Shirk. When a person is on Tawheed and you know of nothing other than Tawheed for him, and you like him and you have allegiance with him because of that, and then he changes and he begins to make a call to defend and justify an action of shirk. He changes. He's the one who's corrupt. He's the one who has become confused. He's the one who has changed and stumbled. And they'll say about you, now that you change your stance, you're confused. Look at you, yesterday saying this and now you say this. Look how they turn the tables, brothers and sisters. But again, Tuba lil ghuraba, glad tidings to the strangers. Let them say it about you, and let you enjoy that you are a stranger amongst the people. They'll say, ghulat, ghulat, ghulat. These people are extreme and fanatics in the religion. Just yesterday they would say good things about someone, and today they're saying there's animosity and hatred between us until you believe in Allah wahdahu, alone. Ghulat. They'll call you ghali, they'll call you from the ghulat. They'll say you're confused and stumbling. Alhamdulillah. When the people become corrupt on a wide scale, thank Allah Ta'ala that He made the issues clear to you. Thank Allah Ta'ala that His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, addressing you, Tuba lil ghuraba, glad tidings to the strangers. In this book, Kashf ash-Shubuhaat, that we will begin studying in our next session tomorrow night, Insha'Allah Ta'ala, we'll learn about the meaning of a Tawheed, the statement of La ilaha illallah, the essence of the risala, of the message of the prophets of Allah and the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We'll learn about and be very clear on why he fought against the polytheists of Mecca. What was it that was the very grounds for the religious animosity? We'll learn about the proofs and the evidences regarding the actions of the mushrikeen, and that they used to actually confirm Allah as their only Rabb, yet the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam still fought them. We'll learn how they used to reject the true Tawheed that the Messenger called them to. We'll learn what the actual essence of their dua was, the very shirk that made them enemies to Islam. We'll learn about that. We'll learn the great benefit of knowing that for our religion that our author Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala is going to explain to us, we'll learn about how essential the Tawheed of al-uluhiyyah is. Insha'Allah ta'ala, the Tawheed of making all acts of worship for Allah ta'ala. We'll learn how calling on angels and righteous people, requesting that they intercede, was the very shirk that caused the blood of the people of Mecca to be declared halal. We'll learn about the true message of the Prophet and his call to Tawheed. We'll learn about how the kuffar knew clearly the meaning of La ilaha illallah and how they rejected it upon knowledge. We'll learn why the author said this profound statement, La khayra fi rajulin. There's no good in a man. Jahilun bit Tawheed, or kama qal, he's ignorant of Tawheed. And the polytheists of Mecca, who fought against the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, were more knowledgeable about the statement La ilaha illallah than he is. What good could there be in such a man? We'll look at this profound statement from the author and actualize what it really means, and that will give us two great benefits, as our author will explain to us, insha'Allah ta'ala, that we shall be those who rejoice in the bounties of Allah regarding the guidance that He has bestowed upon us. And that will lead us into a second benefit, that we will also become extremely fearful for ourselves. That as so many others have fallen into the anger of Allah, into actions that lead them to destruction, we are not safe. Even though Allah Ta'ala has blessed us today, we are not safe and we are fearful. And we'll learn about the importance of not being ignorant as it relates to Tawheed. We'll learn about the obligation to learn the religion of Islam. And we'll learn about the different kinds of people as it relates to that knowledge. And we'll be able to answer a series of doubts that the people of Shirk and the sympathizers of the mushrikeen and the justifiers of their actions and those who pave the way for them to do what they do, will learn a series of their arguments, some of them evidence-based and some of them rationally based. And we will allow our Shaykh, the great scholar of Islam, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala, we will allow him to teach us what our response will be. Not that we debate people, but we do say a statement of guidance as we leave the room, as we walk away, and as we separate ourselves from people who justify and call to acts of shirk. We will try to offer a statement, but again, as I said, on our way out the door, what we would say as we leave, as a point of guidance, hoping for there to be a statement that Allah Ta'ala would bless from our tongues to give guidance to a person by His permission. We will learn a series of those doubts that they have and those points of confusion and how to answer them upon clarity in our religion, with one clear proof usually. One clear proof on the way out the door. This is what we intend to study over the next 10 or 11 nights, asking Allah Ta'ala to make it easy upon us to complete this study and to master these basic issues, and that Allah Ta'ala grants us stability that does not waver in the face of all of this straying that is going on around us, and all of this confusion that is being spread day and night on the internet and elsewhere. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us stability in His religion, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to excuse us as He is al-afu. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'afu anna. Oh Allah, You are the afu, You're the one who excuses, so excuse us. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa. You are the one who excuses, and You love to accept the excuses. You love to excuse people, so excuse us. We ask Allah Ta'ala to guide us to correct statements and actions, and to keep us from straying. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. And just as a final note, join us nightly here, insha'Allah Ta'ala, on Troid Radio, for this, insha'Allah Ta'ala, very beneficial series of reminders for those of us who have studied Kashf ash-Shubuhaat, and educational material for those of us who haven't studied it. We ask Allah Ta'ala for success. I was asked if there would be a chance for questions. So, I don't know how that would happen, but I have a WhatsApp connection to our brother there in Toronto organizing this broadcast. So if he's able to present any questions through that medium, he can do so. Otherwise, we'll close for this evening, insha'Allah ta'ala. And I'll give him a moment because we have a delay of 15 to 30 seconds from the radio broadcast as the time it leaves here to the time it reaches the live air. There is a bit of delay. Okay, my message here is that we will take questions from tomorrow, insha'Allah ta'ala. Look at the forum on Troid. There's a new forum that just opened up, the forum for Kashf ash-Shubuhaat. Wallahi ikhwan wa akhawati, don't allow this nice little opportunity to pass you by. We'll come together in the nights of Ramadan for a half an hour, in a way that will not take away from your acts of worship, in a way that will not take away from your i'tikaf. If you're in i'tikaf, you can remain in your masjid and tune in, and it will not harm your i'tikaf. It is not something that is 3 hours or something that would take over your dedicated personal acts of worship. And our Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen has some very comforting words for those who would think that seeking knowledge or studying a class in the last 10 days of Ramadan or last 10 nights is something that would distract us and keep us from what we have more right to focus on. That being the case, I encourage you again, don't let this chance pass you by. We'll come together, insha'Allah ta'ala, upon ta'awun, upon cooperation for the sake of Allah, upon birr and taqwa, upon righteousness and piety, and gain some understanding in our religion. And insha'Allah, we are in dire need of a review of this book at this time. لو تعلمون ما أعلم. If you only knew what I knew. هذا وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.